The impact of childhood trauma on neurons determines why some people can never be happy. But the brain isn't set in stone, it flows like a river. Modern neuroscience has long recognized that neuroplasticity. If trauma can reshape the brain structure to make it vigilant, then profound neural experiences, cognitive training, and even medical interventions equally possess the physical ability to reshape the brain again. Blaming your current sense of powerlessness on neural circuits from decades ago is a denial of organisms' most fundamental adaptive capacity. The brain is indeed a river, but trauma does not exist to block happiness. It exists to build a defense system. The primary imperative of evolution is survival, not happiness. When the nervous system detects a threat-filled environment during childhood, it ruthlessly strips away the capacity for joy. Happiness makes one drop their guard, so the brain redirects all available energy into defense mechanisms. This rewiring is so successful and aligns so perfectly with biological survival logic that the brain views any attempts to restore happiness as a suicidal act of disarmament. Regarding your claim about the inability to experience happiness, the neurons haven't lost their capacity to perceive happiness. They have merely rewritten the definition of happiness, changing it from pleasure to safety or control. What humans experience isn't a disappearance of happiness, but rather a severely restricted mechanism from triggering it. People love to romanticize the river of happiness, but they forget that what memory loved the most is pain. Decades of trauma has carved deep abysses into the brain. Although neurotransmitters still flow, the deep drop in the neural circuits means the water can only pour into the abyss. New experiences might act like heavy rain, but once it falls, the water simply rushes back down the exact same abysses. Ultimately, so-called neuroplasticity often merely deepens the original scars, rather than filling them in. Damaged neurons do indeed create an abyss of pain, but this does not mean that happiness program at a conscious level has been entirely deleted. Much like a blind person's develop an enhanced hearing, when the standard dopamine circuit is blocked, human often seeks out more complex, even deeper alternative sense of fulfillment, such as the agony of creation, the thrill of revenge, or the sense of order brought by extreme self-discipline. That is not called inability to experience happiness. It is a fundamental shift in how happiness is found. You are simply redefining happiness. Medically speaking, when injured skin heals, it forms a scar. That scar is tougher and thicker than the original skin, but precisely because of this, it completely loses all sensation from hair follicles and nerve endings. Brain reshaping follow the exact same principle. To shield against severe pain, the nerve system grows thicker mental scars. This is undeniably adaptation. A person covered in armor has certainly adapted to war, but he can no longer feel the delicate touch of a spring breeze. Comparing this defense mechanism to a scar is biologically inaccurate. The nerve endings beneath the layers of armor never died. They merely enter a state of dormancy. Any living being returning to a peaceful environment after extreme warfare proves that these suppressed senses hasn't simply vanished. Once the brain consistently recognizes it is safe and the armor comes out through cognitive healing, those neurons that has been denied joy for so long awaken, and they can experience happiness with 100 times the intensity of the ordinary person. Your argument commits a fatal logical error. Attempting to fix a broken system with another broken system, the very prefrontal cortex, a limbic system required for cognitive training and deep experiences, are themselves distorted by trauma. It is equivalent to asking a virus-infected computer to run an antivirus software when the software's own code has already been corrupted by the virus. Then you are completely ignoring modern technology. Even if those neurons are physically damaged, treatments like transcranial magnetic stimulation, psychedelic therapy, and future brain implants all prove one thing: experience can be artificially rewritten by external technology. To insist that childhood determines a lifetime is to ignore that humans are already evolving and no longer just biological animals, moving straight towards technological symbiosis. This desire to rewrite the universe through technology is inherently the arrogance of the strong, a form of bullying against survivor. Your argument subconsciously says you are in pain because you ain't trying hard enough to reconstruct yourself. But the truth is, some trauma is a devastating blow to humanity's trust mechanism. Forcibly demanding a traumatized person to undergo cognitive training. It's like forcing someone with a broken leg to run a marathon just to prove muscle plasticity. It is not only unscientific, but is profoundly cruel. You don't need to use the arrogance of the strong and the bullying of the survivor to build a moral high ground. Defining victim protection as depriving the victim of the possibility of change is a far deeper arrogance. Despair is the ultimate comfort zone, and the pity is the greatest prison. Condemning a life as permanently damaged and labeling it irreparable merely to provide a shelter is the pinnacle of arrogance. Your argument might seem to defend the victim. In truth, it puts trauma on an untouchable pedestal. This embracing change rhetoric ignores the organism's most fundamental identity. Trauma has already formed the core of the personality. Forcibly stripping away the trauma is equivalent to killing the current personality. It is essentially the murder of the existing self. When external tech or drugs rewrites neural circuits, implanting a happiness that didn't originally belong to this individual, is the person who wakes up still the same person? This merely manufactured a new clone, equipped with a happiness function, while the original soul is unliberated by the rewiring. It seems you agree that neurons can be rewired, and that trauma is a mental parasite. A host trying to protect its parasite only proves that the parasite has already hijacked its cognition. Just because a virus invades a cell and rewrites its DNA to survive doesn't make it the master of the organism. The way trauma operates within neural circuits is strikingly similar to the endless proliferation of cancer cells. It monopolizes resources, crowds out normal functions, and tricks the body into believing its existence is necessary. Neural rewiring is not murder, it is treatment. Comparing trauma to a virus is an extremely dangerous oversimplification. The human nervous system is not a passive victim. It actively chose trauma as the price of survival. If you surgically remove trauma like a foreign object, you also destroy the survival skill it forged, the hyper-awareness, the deep caution, and immunity to false peace. The so-called happiness and health is in essence simply a surrendering humanity to dopamine manipulation. The goal here was never to erase the past. The true purpose of neural rewiring is not to turn you into a memoryless, happy clone, but to return to you the right to choose. True strength isn't standing on the battlefield forever wearing heavy armor. It is having the courage to finally take it off. Neurons might remember the war, but consciousness has the right to declare peace. This is not a betrayal of the past. This is true survival. Well, sudden silence is often more terrifying than the sound of gunfire. Elegant words and emotional appeal always just sound like a textbook answer.